Hello, Naveen, and well, before we start, I would like to give a small introduction about his bios. First of all, Naveen Diaz has a master's degree in Management Information Systems from the University of Akron and a bachelor's in Electronics and Communication Engineering from JNTU, with more than 8 years of experience in performance engineering and quality assurance, analysis in healthcare banking, insurance and finance industries. And well, Naveen also has worked with renowned international companies such as Deloitte Consulting as a team leader, a performance test analyst, and quality assurance analyst. On Entrepreneur Edge as an independent business consultant, and on Tata Consultancy Services. As well, among his multiple professional honors, Naveen Diaz received one of the Best Student Award and member of Sigma Iota Epsilon, a national honorary and professional management fraternity. It's a pleasure to us to have you talking, so please, they are all yours.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that good introduction. It's been a while. I haven't even noted it that I have done all that. First of all, are you guys able to hear me? Or do I need to increase my volume? Anybody can reply. All right.
If somebody can reply him, if you know what is he talking about.
All right, I'll take that as yes. All right, I'm an Indian by birth, so I thank very much everybody for allowing me for this opportunity today. I'm gonna talk about Indian culture, and as the presentation says, Indian culture is a lot many things. There are too many colors, too many things going on. Indian culture, many people when they think of Indian culture, ancient, modern, color, cuisine, dance, music, there's a lot going on. It's a lot of clutter. So let's just declutter it. Can we go to the next slide, please? All right. So Indian culture, Indian culture is amalgamation of ethno-linguistic diverse nation influenced by heritage, immigration, and colonial influence. So why do I say that? Firstly, namaste. This is one of the prominent greetings in India we do. And it's not religious or it's not ethnic, it's just evolved. India has been a culture for thousands of years, but the way India exists today is because of a long heritage from Indus Valley civilization to then migration by Aryans from the Central Asia, from the Central Asian republics area back in 5 to 10,000 years ago. And then over the time, due to Mongol invasions, and then eventually British, today's India has shaped into its own form. So India speaks many languages, India eats many foods, India talks many different things, but still it binds into one thing. And it's a lot to grasp. So what is Indian culture? So as you can see the image on the right side, you see that there are elephants, there's yoga, there are symbols, there's women, there's a lot many things, but still it's India. India has existed not only until before British. India was a nation starting 2000 BC when there were 16 different principalities which formed into Shodash Mahajanapadas. And since prior to that, India was once united by a great king called Bharat. And the Indians called India as Bharat. Then during Mughals, great emperor Akbar united the entire landmass of India into one thing called India. And before British arrived, Marathas conquered most of the India. So the feeling of one nation or uniting the entire landmass into one has existed for many centuries, even before the modern India existed. Can you move to the next slide, please? So why this India has been this way? So there are many reasons which come to, but one of the important reasons India is the way it is because of religion and spirituality. As everybody might know, that anybody who hears of a monk or hears of yoga, hears of a meditation or something, they always think of India. India has always been a deeply spiritual country. And most of the world religions are born out of India. If not, they firstly arrived in India. I'm rather gonna, instead of reading from the slide, I'll let you guys read, but I'll go through the religious history of India. India was named India by Greeks when they came to the river called Indus. Indus is made of 5 rivers called Satluj, Ravi, Bias, Chenab, and Jhelum. When these 5 rivers unite into one, it's called Indus. In Indian languages, it is called Sindhu. That's where the word comes Hindu. People who lived beyond the river Sindhu were called Hindu. And this was by the Greek people who came to India first. They couldn't pronounce Sindhu, so they called it Hindu. And that's how India came into picture. So there is no specific hymn or ritual or some XYZ principle which makes anybody Hindu in India. So that resolves the question of natives. Then when we come to future religions like Christianity and Islam, as the Christianity was born after the Christ, even before the missionaries arrived in most part of the world, India had a church in Kerala, in Malappuram, since 300 BC. So India has a strong hold of Christianity, even Islam. Even before the Muslim invaders came, India has one of the oldest mosques. And then other religions like Jainism, Buddhism, and Sikhism, they were all born out of India. Also the faiths like Zoroastrians, who was running away from persecution in the ancient Persia, fled to India, and most 95% of the old Zoroastrians live in India today. Even the Jews migrated to India. Many people don't know that there is a huge diaspora of Jews in India. Even Baha'i faith has big mosques. So India has been a land where everybody learns to live along with each other with not much of tension. It would be surprising to know that in Islam or Muslims, the way they follow the faith, there are 84 different ethnicities which follow some or the other version of the Islam. All those coexist in India. In Christianity, if we go to Baptists, Catholics, Protestants, or Orthodox Christians, you will find them in India, and not until recent, since the British arrived. They have existed since long time. As India has been a trade route for many nations, these all everything arrived. But what binded them together? The Indian focus of spirituality and ancient books. So Indian books, ancient books, not only focus on faith, they are pretty much sometimes not even related to anything, highly related to soul or body. Like, for example, yoga. Yoga is more something about your mental sense, about your mind. Keeping your mind at ease is what more yoga is about. And it has nothing to do with faith. So such spiritual traditions have existed, or for example, traditional medicine, Ayurveda. Ancient traditional medicine in India, it is said that more than 80% of your care can be taken care at home. And it is better, prevention is better than cure, is what the science even today propagates. And that's what has been taught to every Indian. Let's say, example, turmeric, with the amount of turmeric Indians eat, the amount of spice they eat. These foods have been kind of a knowledge passed on from one generation to another generation, learning from every single herb, every single plant they touch, they see, and how to cook, what to make. And then whenever something new comes in, they just involve that in. I have left some pictures there how each religion uses its own symbols, but you can find more on the Google. Can we move to the next slide, please? Languages of India. So when I started, I said ethno-linguistic. So Indian Parliament, if anybody in Indian Parliament raises up and speaks, they have to have a prior permission from the speaker in both the houses of India. India works on a bicameral system, lower house and upper house, or you can call in Indian way of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. In that, every person who speaks have to be translated into 22 official languages. There are many more languages. There are almost 127 languages with their own scripts and 652 dialects. So why there are so many languages? So if you look at the map, there are two maps you can see. The lower map, which is red and orange, is the current India, but the other map is shows you the actual Indian subcontinent. So India is called a subcontinent because when the Earth was forming and the entire landmass was into one thing, when everything was breaking away and colliding, this landmass, this Indian tectonic plate broke away and collided with the Asiatic plate. And that's where you see all these mountain ranges like Karakoram, Himalayas, Hindu Kush and Pamir, which are sometimes about 24, 28,000 feet. Even at 20,000 feet, you see passes in these mountains. So the reason of explaining this is this mountains helped a landmass where there is a lot of alluvium soil, good water, year-round good weather, and lot of rain, which is seasonal 4 months of every year. So people have lived here for a long, long time. In the upper orange region, in the upper map, you'll see that there are Indo-Tibetan languages which are shown. And then you will see in the central part of the most of the India, there is Pakistan in this map too, but it has existed as a whole in one culture for a long time. So you would see that rest of it is Indo-Germanic languages, like Sanskrit and German are very close to each other. At the lower bottom, you would see Dravidian languages. So these, and then there are tiny slivers of places which are Austro-Asiatic. So in India, even more than 23, if I'm not wrong, you can correct me if you find something else, but more than 23% of Indians are tribals. So those languages are still preserved. So because of all this, these languages still survive. India has many tribes which haven't been contacted by any humans till date. So that's how, if you don't know, that's how some things are preserved too, in a way. But with these many diversities, let's say religion and spirituality binds it, but what else? To form a country or to have a country and have a culture, there is a lot more which goes into. So the Indian literature has been mostly like we have, I'm forgetting this, for Greeks we have epics like Trojan War and other epics. India has Ramayana and Mahabharata. These epics are mostly the stories of Indian kings which are revered as gods. Even before we have a concept of world war, Mahabharata is pretty much a concept of big fight between all the Indian kings and people picking sides. From moving on from epics, novels, Kalidas or Kalidasa, the southern Indians would call Kalidasa and most northern Indians would call Kalidas. you will find this subtle R sound more in southern India. So Kalidas is considered to be a Shakespeare of India, even before Shakespeare existed. He wrote so many novels. One of his famous novels, Abhignana Shakuntalam, which is pretty much like Shakespeare's Othello or Macbeth. Such kind of books he has written. Even till date, people try to understand the layers of emotions he has trapped in those books. Apart from that, India has also celebrated the sexuality of human being, the sex. India has temples based on Kama Sutra. Kama Sutra has been a big book, how, what's pleasurable, how much humans should pleasure themselves. So that literature and these language and that spirituality and religion comes into one thing. And just before we move over this slide, how does the current India look like? So if you see orange, those all would be considered as regional languages or languages which are not closer to Hindi. And the red color would be languages which are closer to Hindi. And don't get it wrong. Many languages which are in orange don't have to do anything with each other. If a Tamil person in the South India might not understand a Kashmiri person up in the north. So how these people communicate? Every Indian learns 3 languages: English, Hindi, and then their regional language. So English is a language of business in India, and that's how we continue. Can we move to the next slide, please? Here's the landscape of India. So India has a desert, has mountains, has world's largest glacier outside the ice caps, has world's rainiest, first and second rainiest places, and has semi-arid to rainforests to biodiverse regions. So if you look at the map, the southern India is pretty much a plateau, but at the borders where it meets sea, there are high ranges of mountains, and those are like ecozones. And then if you look at the westward, which would be on my left hand side, or the way you're seeing the hand I'm raising, that would be the desert and the marshy land of India. And on the right side, you would see on the east, you would see all the mountains where the world's largest delta, Sundarbans, forms. And then there are world's rainiest places called Khasi and Garo hills. But the main reason of explaining landscape is, in this all, you would see the central part of India, you don't see much. It's all rivers. There are many rivers. World's largest river, Ganges, and world's second and third largest river, Ganges and Brahmaputra, fall into that basin. Even though Indus doesn't fall in there, but it's still many rivers originate from India. So more than 400 million people live by those rivers. Most of the India is uninhabitable, or it is reserve forest or protected, but most Indians live in those basins. Can we move to the next slide, please? So when people live in such close quarters, they need something to get away from their day-to-day life, day-to-day friction, and that's where festivals come. You might have seen fellow Indians next to you, they are loud. They like to celebrate everything, from the colors to light to dance, everything. So here are some ranges of the festivals. So every spring in India celebrates spring in many forms. Many places people fly kites. So in southern India, it's called Sankranti. In the northern India, Punjabis call it as Baisakhi. It is pretty much like a harvest festival celebrated with the different names in the different part of India. In eastern part, it's called Bihu. So in the picture at the top, if you see center picture and on the right side, 1, 2, all those are harvest. On the left side, you see as the spring arrives, India starts celebrating color festival. People throw colors at each other. And it is not celebrated everywhere in India, even though it is celebrated by many people. It is celebrated as some kind of holiday, but color throwing is done mostly in the central and northern parts of India, and much to the central southern or western southern region. It's called Holi. And then you would look to the leftmost picture on the top, which is Indian deity, or it is pretty much a rock which is called Shiva. It is in the mountains of Kashmir. There is a big yatra which happens where all Indians go. It's like pretty much a pilgrimage a Muslim would do to Makkah or Medina, or a Christian would do to a Jerusalem. That kind of pilgrimage happens. And then you look at the bottom, you see Eid at the leftmost side. So India, even though Muslims are in minority, there are more than 300, I think, yeah, 20% of Muslims live in India, and India is second largest place for Muslims. So Eid is highly celebrated. Ramadan is very well celebrated. Some cities are completely shut down and they open up at night and for night bazaars. Then you would see some in some places they also have Buddhist faith like monasteries and everything. So right next to Eid celebration on the leftmost, you see the Tibetan Indians celebrating their festivals in the rainy months. And then you see somebody trying a band on the hand. This is not by my sister, but mostly in India, irrespective of any religion or any faith, sisters tie bands to brothers on a certain day just as a symbol of love and seeking protection, which is an old concept, but it is pretty much like a love and respect. All day a brother and sister might fight all year long, but on that day they celebrate this. And then you have Ganesh Chaturthi, and then you have Durga Puja, which are shown there too. These are the celebrations where Indians gather a lot. And then Christmas, of course. Indians get 10 days of holidays for Christmas. And I have said to many people that Christmas in India is much more pleasurable than in North America. Can we move to the next slide, please? I hope you guys are not following all the information, but you are getting a little bit sense of it, what this culture is about. So when there are so many people bound by religion, spirituality, landscape, and festivals, there is also a lot of music and dance which comes into picture. So India has classical dances, folk dances, and then street dances, and then street dramas, and which have rich heritage of 2000, 1800, 500. Different dance forms have rich history of so many years. So on the left side, you would see all the classical dance forms of India. Starting from Bharatanatyam, which is in Tamil Nadu, and then Kathak, which is in central India, and then Kathakali, which is again in the southernmost India, west India, called Kerala, and then Kuchipudi, which is part of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, which is again southern India. All these dance forms which you see at the top are more Dravidian, except for Kathak. And then this at the bottom you see Manipuri, which comes from a state called Manipur in the northeastern region of India, closer to Myanmar or Burma in the olden days. And then you see Mohiniyattam and Odissi, which are part of eastern India. And then, sorry, I'm unable to grab the name, and I forgot what it was. But these are classical dance forms. And again, as you know, in every dance, if you go for a ballet or salsa or bachata, let's say it will be more apt for you guys to understand. If there is salsa, but there is Cuban salsa, there is a salsa with reggaeton. It is different. So in these dance forms, every city takes its own unique flavor in India. So if you are people take pride in saying that, okay, I am from this school of teaching of this dance. So these dance are very different coming to from which city they are. Folk dances. Most of the folk dances in India are performed during harvests or during monsoon or before the winter starts. One of the famous dances which are becoming really popular, like Samba is popular nowadays all over the world, is Garba. It is a Western Indian dance from a state called Gujarat. It is performed right before the winter kicks in and the monsoon ends in Navaratri, which literally translates as 9 nights, where the goddess Durga is celebrated. People just dance. And there is no ritual or hymn or anything, you just dance. And sometimes, people are not even dancing for the goddess. It's the Bollywood music and it's all the shimmery, glamorous dresses, old ethnic dresses, people which they don't wear nowadays, they just bring them out. And then there are competitions and people get big prizes. For a fact, I am a professional Garba dancer and I once won a good gift prize and I got my mother diamond ring. It wasn't a big ring, but at least it was a prize. There are other dance forms you see. There are dance forms like Ghumar, and there are dance forms like tribal dance forms. I don't know many dances, but every state has at least 3 or 4 different folk dances depending on what ritual is. It's just, when you have festivals, there would be music and there would be some dance which evolves right out of it. Can we move to the next slide, please? Clothing. So just to give a little sense, I have added a picture of traditional dresses in India. It becomes much more complicated. It's not just sari and dhoti kurta, which is typically associated with how the Indians dress. But there are many variations. You can see in the slide on the left. It shows from the northwest part of India to northeast part of India, and then tribals, how they are dressing. Just to give a little sense, I added an India's map with sari, the way the form it takes. So India used to be a textile hub, and 35% of world trade used to happen through India. So all the artisans mostly would come to India and come with beautiful designs. So these are names of all the different types of saris which are out of India. Every region picks, like, let's say Bandhani or Malabari silk or Mysore silk. These all or let's say Banarasi, the central India part. All this are just the way sari is done. India, in the text, the artisans are so good that a 5-meter sari can be put in a matchbox. Some artisans do that. And many in southern India, where I live now, I used to live where my family is from. There, the tradition is people would melt gold and the threads would be made out of it and they would be weaved into saris to make good petals and designs and everything. And the sari is sold, but depending on the weight of it, that's called pattu sari. And the same is kanjivaram. You would weigh the amount of sari. When you are buying a silk sari, it's completely different. And then when you go to cities, the chiffon and the synthetic saris, there are many styles people wear saris, and sari has been fashionized too. So, but yeah, in general, Indians wear all modern Western clothes everywhere. But yeah, traditional clothing does exist for the large part too. Can we move to the next slide, please? Food in India. So we covered how this entire thing was binding spirituality, religion, landscape, dances, festival, clothing and everything. But what do Indians eat? Indians eat many things. There is a saying, if every 10 miles of food, culture, tradition, and dressing doesn't change, then you're not in India. Here are 2 maps. One is right map is a street foods popular all over India, and the left side is a map what you must try. Everybody knows that in India beef is big no, but no, that's not the reality. There are certain states in India beef is just staple food. Even though Hindus or beef, you would find friends from India who wouldn't eat beef, but India is the second largest, or maybe by now first largest exporter of beef. There are too many cows and too many cattle, and somebody got to do business, so it happens. So India forms into such diverse cuisine that you would be surprised. Over the time, as India as a commute has become easier, you can find any cuisine anywhere in India, pretty much in every city. And nowadays, in India, Saturdays and Sunday, a typical middle class family in India would be pretty much traveling from one part to other part um, of a city for work. So on weekends, they get a chance to is somebody thinking what they want to say? Can somebody translate the Spanish for me? Okay. So Saturdays or Sundays, people eat all the food flavors from everywhere in India. I'm unable to follow Spanish. If somebody can translate, if somebody wants me to interrupt something, I would go. But you can look at this map and understand what the Indians eat. It is a lot, and I even don't know. And you don't really want to know. But if you're more intrigued, you can research more. Can we move to the next slide, please? So we heard a lot of what India's culture, traditions, and everything. But what Indians really do? What's actual? How do they earn money? What's the Indian economy like? So India is an agriculture-based economy, but the business is also a lot. So on the left-hand side, I have. Can you guys hear me? On the left-hand side, I've added a map where you could see what kind of crops are grown in India. As the landscape is very diverse, not every crop can be grown everywhere in India. So depending on where the crop is grown, that's what the traditional cuisine ends up to be. But in today's world, India usually used to have two crops back in those days because of the weather patterns. All over world, maybe in the colder parts, one crop, but when I was a kid, it was three crops. Nowadays, India produces four crops. So most of the Indian mangoes or Indian wheat or anything you would see, those are excess crops which Indian farmers are producing, which come over to the other parts of the world. So today, anywhere in India, you can find anything, and you would be enjoying. You would be your cuisine might be completely changing. Pizzas and burgers and McDonald's and Subways and Pizza Huts are pretty much part of India too. So there is a saying: there are many Indias in India. Indian cities form more than one-fifth of population of India, and they are pretty much like any modern city today, which you wouldn't find a lot of difference. And we do have apps like Uber and other food apps. Uber Eats in India has its own version, Swiggy and Zomato. On the right side, as India has been changing, you might have seen many people from India are from IT. So the reason it is changing is over the many years of independence. India has recently celebrated its 76th year of independence on August 15th. Since then, India has been changing from an agricultural based economy more towards a service based economy and industrialized economy. So here's a map where you would see where the most industries are, where the most industrialized sector in India is. And the most blue part you see is Maharashtra, and their capital is Mumbai. Mumbai is considered as a financial capital of India. India is not only good in IT, India is a pharmaceutical hub of the world too. In COVID, we have seen that India had a lot of vaccines rolling out of it. So I have added some pictures of some companies which are really popular and which employ many Indians. But there are many companies, many sectors just for an idea. But this also shapes the current India, as it was agricultural based economy, now shifting more towards a service based economy. There is a good tectonic shift the way Indian families are. Earlier, Indian families would be more like from mother, father, and kids and their grandkids, everybody living in one under one roof as a big family. But now it's more nuclear families because people are more working in cities and they have to be closer to their families. So this has a good impact on Indian culture too. Can we move to next slide, please? That's all my presentation is. In short, I tried to give you how India was and how it shaped and what are the other different reasons that the India gets its own flavor and how the modern India looks like. But I'm open for questions.
Is there any question?
I can hear you.
We have one question, please.
Mhm.
Somebody's gonna ask a question.
Yes. Can someone remove me from spotlight? If somebody is on the Zoom, I can see their face.
She's receiving a microphone so that you can hear her.
Okay, that works.
I'm gonna ask.
Okay.
The question says that it's understood that Indian culture teaches us to respect each other, to be kind, tolerant, and generous. So are these principles really present during business when you are closing deals? Do you have these principles present?
Of course, there are these principles present, but any part of the world, humans are known to discriminate against each other. So, one of the parts I haven't touched in this is, which is completely changing. India is a caste-based society, and urbanized centers. So, just to go against this, the framers of India had put some safeguards called reservations for people from the backward or from different castes who have been oppressed or who have been backward. So in federal and in state level and in many and even in universities, people have reserved rights. You have to choose people. Let's say in Brazil, you would choose an indigenous person, or in Canada, right now where I am, you would choose an indigenous person for something. Those are reserved for them. So in India, even in Indian parliamentary elections or even in jobs, there are reservations. Of course, in private sector, there are no such reservations, but there are laws against discrimination. And over the time, people have sued many people and courts have uh, given verdicts. It's still a work in progress. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but there are safeguards.
Thank you very much. Naveen, I have a second question. May I ask?
Sure.
It is all about if we have the opportunity to visit India, which place should we visit? Should you advise us to visit and why?
So I would say if you want to get a good sense of India, visiting one place wouldn't give you the feel of it. At least you would want to spend 1 month and pick 2 or 3 cities, because every city speaks different language and their culture and traditions even change. So like some places, people are very, let's say Tamil Nadu, people know English, but they prefer their own language. You would pick some Tamil words, but if you go to capital of India, Delhi, you would be very fine with English. You don't have to learn any other language, and it would be more power. If you go to Mumbai, it's more sea kind of weather and more humid and finance and corporate people walking around. So I would say at least pick 2 or 3 cities or do 2 or 3 trips. But yeah, any one city would do for a start.
Thank you very much. I have a next question, Naveen, please. Which do you think is India's main attraction? Well, it's kind of like the same, but it also asks, what do you think are the main means of exchange between your country and our country?
India and Mexico. That's a good question, actually. So India and Mexico and Brazil and South Africa and many Indonesia are all these countries are part of G20, if I'm correct. These are emerging economies, and I think recently Indian delegations, this current administration is more interested in building those ties more stronger. So the Indian business has been trying to connect with more Mexican business, and it is pretty much as Mexico is diverse. Depending on where you go, it changes a lot. So India has many similarities with Mexico, and it would be, I always use this analogy. If you don't want to be like a frog in a well, you need to know there is an ocean which exists outside. So this would be a real good friendship between India and Mexico, or I would say Mexico.
Thank you very much. I have a next question. These questions arrived during the live mission. And here it says, if you think that the Davawalas, I hope I pronounce correct, if not, feel free to correct me. Davawalas business model will be replaced in the future. Well, this question is asked because they think that it is a very clear example of united and well-organized community. So what's your opinion? Will it be replaced sometime?
Whose business model you're saying?
Davawalas.
I am not able to decipher it. If you could just talk more about it or spell it out.
Okay, the spelling is D-A twice B-A-W-A-L-A-S.
I am sorry, I haven't heard of this before, so I wouldn't be able to answer. I don't know much about this topic.
Okay, you are not too into this one. Okay, this was the last question. I don't know if somebody else has a question. We have an extra question. Please, they are going to hand it to me to ask you. I have 2 more questions. Well, which are the, first of all, if you can answer to us, which are the 2 main commercial partners of India?
2 main commercial partners of India. European Union and United States are the big commercial partners of India. But India has a big appetite, 1.4 billion. Even the 10th partner would be big compared to many countries. And it keeps changing every year.
Thanks a lot, Naveen. A next question. What do you think is the most difficult barrier to have a relationship with India?
As a relationship, as a partner?
Yeah, as a partnership.
That's a very loaded question. I'm even trying to understand it. But yeah, I would say Indians are very proud of their culture and heritage. I think someone like Mexican or Mexican or Egyptian or some culture which has a long history or some culture for them. I see mostly in America, Indians struggle a lot, or people there struggle a lot because American indigenous culture has completely been wiped out, and there is a good void they see. So Indians like to hold on to something what existed here before. But having said that, there are many Indians in America, and the relationships go on. So it's a loaded question. I hope I find an answer in my lifetime for that.
Thanks a lot, Naveen. And I have a last question, and well, maybe it's kind of related.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Tell me, please.
Go ahead.
Do you know about the investment existing from Mexico into India?
Investment. I do not know much investment existing from Mexico to India, but investment from India to Mexico is coming up as there are many. I think a lot we would not know because both India and Mexico are heavily dependent on agriculture as economies. So I would probably assume on that front there might be some investment in India too, but I don't have much knowledge. The countries are just starting to integrate their businesses more.
Thank you very much. I have a next question, and well, they are asking, which industries can Mexico and India work together as one in long-term vision? I mean, to improve their economical position or improve their citizens' life.
Current administration, Foreign Minister Jai Shankar, when he was recently in Mexico, I was hearing him, and what his ambition more was India would like to have some defense partnership with Mexico, and India is good in pharmacy too. So during COVID, when most of the world, the developed countries could pay for expensive vaccines, India produced cheaper vaccines and sent it to the countries where it couldn't be sent. As India doesn't have access to raw materials, but India does have just produce vaccines and all most of the tablets like paracetamol or anything mostly come like more than half of it come out of India. So it would be a good partnership for raw materials, like raw materials from India's raw materials come from China today. So those would be some good sectors. And I think Mexico has a strong pile of raw materials for pharmaceuticals.
Thank you very much, Navin. Is there any other question? Please. We have a next question.
Hi.
Hello. Hola.
I'm not from Mexico, by the way.
Okay.
I'm from Germany, actually. And I wanted to ask, how does assimilation and modernization affect the Indian culture?
Assimilation and modernization affect Indian culture. I'm actually a byproduct of modern India. So my lifestyle wasn't very different than in the Western world right now. I would just go to movies and multiplexes and eat fast food and everything. So I think that was a challenge for my parents, but it has already India has gone through. But on the other side of it is, even though India is so doing good, more than 1/5 of population in India is poor. It sometimes compares to abject poverty in many African nations. So that challenge is the lawmakers have always faced. One of the images, if you might have seen in my slides, the industrialized India and the non-industrialized India. So there is a huge migration from non-industrialized part of India to other parts. So those are some of challenges, how to divide the riches among and haves and have-nots can be more equally spread is one of the challenges India is facing with the modernity.
Thank you very much. And well, we want to share a screen with you. Please, Navin, if you help me sharing the screen.
You asking me something? Oh, okay.
It started to be shared. And well, this comes from university, from the faculty to you. It's a recognition, an award for being delivering us this lecture today, for our outstanding participation as a lecturer in this conference, India Unity in Diversity, that was held, on September 19, 2022, in the second international festival at FCA at UNAM. Well, then our motto for my spirit, my people will talk. And well, this is a recognition the university is delivering to you. Thank you very much, Naveen, for
Thank you.
this interesting lecture. And well, we hope to see you soon, delivering more lectures in the faculty.
Thank you and namaste.
And well, this was the lecture. Thank you very much to be with us today. And for us, it's closed. Thanks, Naveen, and thanks to the people who was with us in remote distance and present today. Thank you very much.